I had some new thoughts regarding the synopsises for the leaked episodes from My Little Pony. So, once again, spoiler warnings. The episode Stranger Than Fan Fiction could be a story about Starlight Glimmer going around to other ponies in Ponyville, asking them to get caught up on what's happened with the main six over the past 5 seasons before she met them, and hearing stories that recap events from the first 5 seasons, but spun through an exaggerated form as told by other characters that would embellish the story somewhat. It'd be almost like Avatar: The Last Airbender and the Ember Island players in that respect. Another thing that could be interesting would be in episode The Cart Before the Ponies. What if it's a Trixie episode and her wagon breaks down, so she puts repairing her cart before doing things with her other friends, and she has her priorities backwards. That could be one way that the cart could come before the ponies. And another thing that I never mentioned in my other videos is I thought of a couple of ideas that could go well with what would happen if we brought back Zephyr Breeze. One idea would be to look at his feelings for Rainbow Dash and have an episode where every pony thinks he has feelings for Rainbow Dash, and Rainbow Dash has to confront him and say, I don't have these feelings for you. And then as time goes on, she starts to see some of his good sides, and while she still doesn't have feelings for him, she starts to realize that he's not as annoying as she thought he was, because he's starting to grow and change and become a little bit different. Another thought for Zephyr Breeze would be to see what would happen if he was accused of something he didn't do, and Fluttershy had to piece together a mystery that reveals what really happened, and find out that for once in his life, Zephyr really was telling the truth about something and he wasn't just trying to get out of work. It would be similar to one of the Larry Butts episodes of the video game series Ace Attorney, because I feel Larry and Zephyr have pretty much the same personality. And another thought I had for Zephyr Breeze is I'd like to see him get involved with one of the ponies who has a short temper, like Miss Harshwinnie, or maybe Limestone Pie. Some pony who would really lay into him and not take it easy, and would have a much shorter temper with him if he didn't perform his job to her standards. Now, moving on into another topic, I was thinking about the topic that I said previously about mature content in My Little Pony and teaching lessons that are generally reserved for a more mature audience. And I remember that shows like Berenstain Bears actually did tackle things like a expecting mother about to have a new baby, dealing with drugs, and dealing with how to react to strangers. There are tons of other episodes of Berenstain Bears, or books from Berenstain Bears, where the cubs learned vital lessons. And I think that's something that we haven't seen since the Captain Planet days. When Captain Planet was around, they tackled all sorts of issues, though looking back at it, some more one-sided or more inaccurate than others. But Captain Planet was even able to tackle AIDS, for example. Static Shock did an episode that revolved around gun violence. There's lots of episodes of cartoons, of old cartoons that had nice public service announcements, like the Cartoon All-Stars special that had an anti-drug message, or the episode of Gargoyles where they learned about the importance of reading, or where they learned about gun safety. Even Life with Louie had an episode where the grandmother on the series died and they dealt with death. And they did a very interesting take on it where Louis doesn't know which of the major religions is right in regards to what happens after we die, and he explores a whole variety of them, and we get to see little examples of what each religion believes in regards to death and stuff like that. Justice League had that very moving episode with Ace from the Royal Flush Gang. So there are plenty of episodes of old cartoons that have done the mature content and they've done it right. That being said, there are a few other things I'd like to see My Little Pony or Equestria Girls or even Powerpuff Girls or any kids show talk about and really touch on, like gangs and peer pressure, whether it's gang related or not. The concept of people trying to pressure you into doing something that you don't think is right, and how difficult it is to resist doing something to gain the approval of others. Nice to see an episode that deals with vices and addiction. It could be anything from alcohol to smoking to drugs to any number of other bad habits where a person starts doing it, and once they start doing it, not only are they finding it difficult to stop, and it also makes their social life worse, but it also maybe leads to some kind of harmful side effects, though not necessarily. But it is something that a lot of shows tend to avoid. Other topics relating to sex and your body and hormonal changes and things that everybody goes through and thinks about and points out what's natural and what's not, what's true and what's myth, what's socially acceptable and what's not socially acceptable, and stresses things like respect and responsibility towards other people for having different points of view. It could also go into things like pregnancy or teen pregnancy and dealing with how to treat that in a responsible and realistic way. Other things I'd like to see touched upon in shows: eating disorders and generally having good health. Not telling people to be proud that they're fat, because that's also a form of unhealthy attitude. But also not encouraging people to be super skinny to the point where that also becomes unhealthy. You don't want people becoming extraordinarily obese, but you don't want them to become anorexic either. You want to encourage good eating habits and plenty of exercise so that later in life people don't have problems with their back and their bones and their muscles and moving around the house and living from day to day in a way that's healthy. And you don't want to give people an unrealistic image to live up to either. Be nice to encourage averageness in body build. Another thing that I think should be touched upon in cartoon shows is the subject of depression, as well as the subject of dementia and many other related mental disabilities, or maybe even bring in other disabilities like Parkinson's, for example. Touch upon things that are real issues with people and teach them how to get over it, how to get help from your friends, how to live your life despite having this condition, and some of the things that you can do about it, and how to detect it before it gets too bad. And anything else that promotes mental health and seeking guidance and getting help from a guidance counselor or other trained professional. Bullies is another thing that should be touched upon more in shows, but not the typical bullies like you see in cartoons nowadays, where they just call kids names and tease them and maybe beat them up or something. Show real, true bullying. Show the extent to which bullies nowadays will go to pick on their victims, what motivates them, and what can truly be done about the situation when things start getting bad. Who do you go to? How do you react? What works and what doesn't work? What advice realistically should be followed? A lot of people had problems with the episode Babseed and said that when kids are getting bullied, it doesn't always work out to tell an adult. It doesn't always work out to not tell an adult either. There has to be different advices for different situations and different levels of extremity of which bullying happens. It's not just a one problem, one answer type of thing. It's a whole different varieties of bullying and teasing that happens, and there are multiple different solutions depending on what type of bullies you have in your life. Another thing that could be touched upon in an episode would be bad parents. Show that just because you're an adult doesn't necessarily mean that you know what's best for kids, and sometimes you have to be willing to tell parents or other authorities that certain parents do not have the best ideas in mind for their kids, and sometimes what they think is the right call is actually the wrong call, and they should be making different decisions. A lot of parents are either abusive to kids or neglectful to them, or even too soft on kids and allows them to become spoiled and unruly. And kids just start running amok and not learning any lessons and don't learn right and wrong. And they end up completely out of control. It's just as bad to be too strict with children and be too violent or neglectful to them as it is to not lay down the law and not show them who's boss. Another moral that could be talked about, not so much through My Little Pony, but maybe through Equestria Girls or Powerpuff Girls or something else, would be internet safety. Nowadays that is something that kids need to know more about. They need to know who to talk to and how much or how little to tell them, and when to judge what is safe or not safe in your interactions, and how to know that what you post is public for everybody and it follows you even as you grow up into an adult, and your prospective employers and college professors and stuff can access your internet records and see what kinds of stuff you post, and they can judge you based on what they read or what they see. Anyhow, that's just some of my more ideas for episodes and a few more of my predictions for the stuff that we already had leaked. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Thank you for watching and good night.